So I want you to picture the second week of April. Just, visualize you're watching a late season matchup.
Right, the dog days of the season.
Exactly. And the point guard for your team, a guy who has literally been carrying the franchise on his back since October, is, well, he's dragging his right leg just a fraction of a second slower on the defensive rotation.
Oh, yeah. You can always see it in the lateral movement first.
You really can. He's breathing heavily through his mouth, hands on his knees during a free throw. And, I mean, by this point in the year, he has run roughly 200 miles on hardwood.
Which is just an insane metric when you say it out loud.
Right, 200 miles of sprinting and stopping. Plus, he has flown over 45,000 miles across the country. He's crossed time zones so frequently that his circadian rhythm is completely,
It's
shattered.
completely broken. Yeah.
And we look at that and we just call it, well, the grueling reality of professional sports. Like, it's normal.
A badge of honor, almost.
Yes, exactly. But what if that level of physical degradation isn't actually a badge of honor at all? What if it's just the byproduct of a structurally flawed business model?
Well, I mean, we've conditioned ourselves to just accept that exhaustion is the price of admission for a professional season.
Right.
The assumption has always been that the sheer volume of games is what makes the product legitimate.
Like more is automatically better.
Exactly. But when you look at the raw data, the compounding physiological toll, the completely diluted television ratings of a random mid-March game, the widespread apathy from the fans, that assumption totally collapses.
It just falls apart.
It does. We were watching a system buckle under its own weight, to be honest.
And that perfectly brings us to our source material for today's deep dive. We're pulling from a really fascinating piece published by the Film Room Remix, and it's titled, "Should the NBA Cut to 60 Games?"
Which is quite the provocative question.
Oh, it really is. Our mission today is to explore this radical proposition for the league. We're looking at fixing a broken system by actively choosing to do less. It's taking the ultimate contrarian approach to modern hypercapitalism, really, intentionally reducing the volume to exponentially increase the value. Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, the author of the piece anchors their entire argument on a very specific premise. They point out that we are currently watching the most talent-rich era in the entire history of the sport.
Oh, without a doubt, the skill is unbelievable right now.
It is. The sheer skill level, the shooting range, the raw athleticism, it's totally unprecedented. And yet, the product often feels like a chore to consume.
It does. It can feel like homework, honestly.
Exactly. The text identifies the 82-game schedule not as some sacred, untouchable tradition, but actually as the primary bottleneck that's suffocating the modern product. The source states outright that the season, quote, often lacks urgency.
Okay, I actually want to push back on that word urgency just for a second, because I hear fans complain about this all the time, right?
Sure, it's the number one complaint.
Like, I tried to watch a marquee matchup last Tuesday, prime time slot on national television, and 3 of the 4 biggest stars were sitting out for quote-unquote rest.
Yeah, the dreaded load management.
Right, and fans get so mad, they call the players soft, they say the urgency is gone because the players just don't care anymore. But if you read between the lines of this Film Room Remix piece, they are arguing that the lack of urgency isn't a character flaw of the modern athlete at all.
Not at all.
It's actually a mathematical certainty built into the schedule itself.
Yeah, I mean, blaming the players is the easiest, kind of lowest resolution way to view the whole problem.
It's a lazy take.
Totally lazy. If we look at this from a front office perspective, load management, which is the primary symptom the text identifies here, is a ruthlessly rational response to an incredibly irrational schedule.
Right, because what's their job?
Well, an NBA front office is tasked with one primary objective, and that is optimizing every single variable to win a championship in June, period. And the 82-game regular season is an endurance test that actively threatens that exact objective.
So let's break down the actual mechanics of that endurance test for a minute, because a lot of people just see guys playing basketball for 48 minutes and think, well, I work a 40-hour week. They can run around for a couple of hours.
Right. People compare it to a desk job, which is
wild.
It's completely wild. It's not just muscle soreness we're talking about here. We have to look at central nervous system, or CNS, fatigue.
Okay, wait, let's pause there. Explain CNS fatigue for anyone who might not be familiar with the sports science side of things.
Sure. So when a player plays 38 minutes at extreme intensity, their cortisol levels just absolutely spike. Their adrenal glands are essentially emptied out by the end of the fourth quarter.
Wow.
And then, They get on a plane at 1 in the morning, fly across 2 time zones, and try to go to sleep in a random hotel at 4:30 a.m.
Which is basically impossible to get good sleep then.
Exactly. You are completely destroying their sleep architecture.
Yeah.
Specifically, you're ruining the deep REM sleep that is required for neurological recovery.
So it's not just that their legs feel heavy.
No. The next night, their muscles might actually feel fine, but their CNS is lagging behind. And that delayed neural firing, that tiny lag in communication from the brain to the body, that is what leads to catastrophic ligament tears.
Oh, because the body isn't protecting itself fast enough.
Precisely. The brain sends the signal to stabilize the knee a millisecond too late and pop.
Jeez. You know, think about your smartphone. It's like the 82-game schedule is like taking a brand new lithium-ion battery and deliberately draining it to 0% every single day and then only charging it to 40% before you use it again.
That's a great analogy.
Right. Like
Yeah.
doing that permanently damages the internal cells. The battery's total capacity permanently shrinks over time.
Yeah, you ruined the battery.
So load management then is basically the medical staff acting as the battery management software. They're artificially keeping the player's capacity between 40% and 80% so the battery doesn't permanently degrade before the playoffs even start.
Which is brilliant for the franchise's long-term asset management, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it is absolutely catastrophic for the immediate consumer product.
Because the fan doesn't care about the battery in May if they bought a ticket in November.
Exactly. If you bought a ticket for that Tuesday night game 3 months in advance, you don't care about the star player's lithium-ion capacity in May.
No.
You care that you just spent $400 to take your kid to a game, and the star is sitting on the bench in street clothes.
Yeah.
The source piece argues that we are permanently stuck in this friction right now.
The friction between the team's needs and the fans' needs.
Yes. The teams are just trying to survive the sheer volume of the season, and the fans are being completely starved of actual value.
I look at the 82-game schedule kind of like an old-school 24-episode network television drama.
Oh, like the old cable models.
Yeah, like the writers physically cannot produce 24 hours of high-stakes gripping plot every single year. It's impossible. So what do you get? You get the filler episodes.
The clip shows.
The clip shows. Or the episode where the main characters are just stuck in an elevator for an hour.
Right, the bottle episode.
Yes. You can skip 3 whole weeks of the NBA season, tune back in, and you literally haven't missed anything that alters the overarching narrative of the year.
Contrast that with the modern prestige streaming model that everyone loves now.
Yeah, 10 episodes.
10 episodes, exactly 0 filler.
Every line of dialogue matters.
If you look at your phone for 5 minutes to answer a text, you miss a crucial betrayal or a massive plot twist. The margin for error for the viewer is practically 0.
And that's what keeps you glued to the screen.
Exactly. The Film Room Remix is arguing we need to move the NBA from a 24-episode network bloated mess to a 10-episode prestige thriller. And the very first step they propose to achieve that isn't just, lazily chopping off 22 games from the end of the year.
Right, they don't just stop earlier.
No, it's fundamentally redrawing the entire calendar.
Yeah.
The source proposes a massive timeline shift.
Okay, walk me through this new timeline.
So instead of launching the season in mid-October, like we're used to, the league would shift to use the Thanksgiving weekend in late November as a, quote, true preseason window.
Wow.
Yeah, this is a complete paradigm shift in sports marketing.
Okay, wait, I actually have to challenge this point for a second, because look at the October sports landscape as it stands right now.
It's crowded, for sure.
It's incredibly crowded. You have the MLB playoffs culminating in the World Series, which is huge. The NFL is an absolute juggernaut dominating Sundays, Mondays, and Thursdays. College football owns Saturday. Right now, the NBA drops its opening night right into the teeth of that buzzsaw, and it kind of gets buried. So I see the logic in moving away from October. But if you push the start to Thanksgiving, doesn't the NBA just go entirely dark for 2 full months?
That's the fear, yeah.
Don't you lose the casual fans of the NFL machine if you are completely out of sight, out of mind for all of October and November?
Well, that is definitely the multi-billion-dollar risk the league would have to underwrite to make this happen. But synthesize the source's logic regarding anticipation.
Okay.
Scarcity economics applies to human attention just as much as it applies to physical goods.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right. By creating a hard, designated waiting period, the league stops competing for ambient background attention in October. They aren't desperately fighting for the viewer who just has a random Tuesday night game on a second monitor while they're really paying attention to football.
Oh, I see. They're building a bottleneck of demand.
Precisely. They're making you miss it. The text points out that aligning the preseason with Thanksgiving leads directly into an opening stretch centered entirely around Christmas.
Which is brilliant timing, actually.
It really is. They are taking the launch of the season and stapling it to the highest density cultural real estate on the calendar.
I mean, Christmas is already the NBA's biggest regular season showcase. Families are gathered around, the presents are done, everyone is just hanging out on the couch.
It's a built-in audience.
Exactly. Right now, Christmas feels like the real start of the NBA season anyway for most casual fans. Everything before that is just prologue.
A dress reversal, basically.
Yeah. So this proposal just aligns the structural start of the league with the behavioral start of the fans. You use Thanksgiving as the appetizer, let people see the new rookies, see the big off-season trades in action, and then boom, the games that actually count drop right as the holiday season peaks.
It heavily concentrates the league's cultural footprint. And, critically, it fundamentally alters the stakes of those games right out of the gate.
How so?
Well, when the players finally step on the court for Game 1 in early December, we aren't just looking at rested bodies. We're looking at a fundamentally different competitive math.
The math of 60 games.
Yes.
Okay, let's really dig into this part. Because what actually happens to the standings when you remove 22 games from the ledger?
The margin for error just completely evaporates.
It shrinks that much.
Drastically.
Yeah.
The source states clearly that teams are forced to be far more deliberate. Let's look at a real-world scenario to make it concrete.
Okay, give me an example.
Say a star player suffers a grade 1 ankle sprain. In an 82-game season, the medical staff looks at it and says, all right, take 2 weeks off, miss 7 games, we have 65 games left to make up the ground.
Right. No need to panic.
Exactly. The standings have enough built-in elasticity to absorb that absence without destroying the season.
But in a 60-game season, missing 7 games is nearly 12% of your entire campaign.
Right. The elasticity is gone.
You can't just brush that off.
No. If a team goes on a 5-game losing streak in January under a 60-game model, that might be a fatal blow to their playoff seeding. It radically elevates the tactical urgency for the coaching staff.
So the coaches have to manage the games differently too.
Oh, completely differently. Right now, coaches use the first 20 games of the season as an extended televised laboratory.
Oh, that's true. They're always messing with lineups in November.
Yeah, they tinker with rotations. They see if the rookie can handle switching on defense against veteran guards.
They are experimenting because the cost of losing a game in November is practically zero in the grand scheme of things.
But under a 60-game model, you don't have time to experiment.
Yeah.
Every single substitution, every timeout, every defensive scheme adjustment carries playoff-level weight right from opening night.
Wow.
If a player's shooting 20% from the field over a 3-game stretch, the coach can't just lazily leave them out there to, shoot their way out of the slump.
They don't have the luxury of time. They have to pull them immediately.
Exactly. Every decision matters immensely.
And as a listener, think about how that changes your relationship with the product. You can't just casually check the box scores on Sunday morning and feel like you're caught up.
You actually have to watch.
You are compelled to watch. A random Wednesday night game between 2 mid-tier teams suddenly becomes must-see TV because that single game might dictate who gets the final playoff spot in April. Every matchup is a high-stakes environment.
And that heightened stakes environment directly impacts the physical product on the floor, which leads us right back to the physiology. The text argues that a shorter season drastically reduces the physical toll.
Let's get beyond just the generic "they're less tired" narrative. What is actually happening to the bodies in a 60-game schedule versus an 82-game schedule? Because the source gets into this, right?
They do, and we actually have empirical data on this from the past. Look back at the lockout shortened seasons.
Oh, right. 1999 and 2011.
Exactly. 1999 was a 50-game season. 2011 was a 66-game season. Now, while those seasons were tightly compressed, which the source admits was a flaw because they tried to cram them into a short window, the overall reduction in total mileage showed a really fascinating trend in late-season true shooting percentages.
Okay, wait. Explain the shooting percentage correlation.
Well, in a standard 82-game year, you typically see a measurable dip in league-wide shooting efficiency around March. Legs get heavy, jump shots just start falling consistently short.
You hear announcers say it all the time. The lift just isn't there on the second half of a back-to-back.
Precisely. But when you remove the back-to-backs entirely, which is a 60-game schedule spread evenly from December to June easily allows you to do, you preserve that lift. You mitigate the cumulative microtears in the patellar tendons.
Which keeps players on the floor.
Yes. Now, the source explicitly points out that injuries don't magically disappear entirely.
Obviously not. Basketball is a dynamic, high-impact collision sport. Guys will still roll ankles stepping on someone's foot going for a rebound.
Right? Accidents happen. But the type of injury changes fundamentally. You might still get the acute accidental injuries, but you drastically reduce the chronic repetitive stress injuries.
I
The
see.
tendinopathies, the stress fractures in the foot, the soft tissue muscle tears that happen simply because a guy's hamstring is just completely overworked and gives out.
So you are basically shifting the probability curve of injuries.
You are. By lowering the cumulative fatigue, you inherently get more consistent availability from your star players. They don't require the medical staff to proactively sit them down on a Tuesday night because the schedule inherently provides the necessary physiological recovery window between contests.
Okay, this all sounds like a utopian basketball dream. But we have to address the giant elephant in the room.
The money.
The money. The Film Room Remix piece focuses heavily on the product, but this is a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. The owners aren't going to just voluntarily burn 22 games worth of local gate revenue out of the goodness of their hearts, right? How do you cut your inventory by that much and still increase your profit?
That is the million-dollar, or I guess billion-dollar question. The answer is that you transition from a volume-based local revenue model to a scarcity-based premium national model.
Okay, unpack that for me.
We have to look at the recent collapse of the regional sports networks, the RSNs.
Oh, this is a huge deal right now.
It's massive. For decades, NBA teams made massive, guaranteed, risk-free money broadcasting those 82 games locally in their home markets. But that model is literally dying as we speak.
Yeah.
Bally Sports went through bankruptcy. The traditional cable bundle is rapidly eroding.
Right. People are cutting the cord left and right. So the old model of relying on 82 nights of local cable viewers to float the franchise valuations is already collapsing anyway.
That is the exact catalyst for this entire structural conversation. As the local RSN money dries up, the league has to pivot and rely more heavily on national broadcast rights and premium streaming platforms like Amazon or Netflix.
And streaming platforms, I assume, don't want to pay billions for 82 games of filler.
Exactly. They want premium event-level inventory that drives subscriptions. If you drop the season to 60 games, the scarcity skyrockets.
I see. So yes, theoretically you lose maybe 11 home games of ticket sales, hot dogs, and parking revenue. But the television ratings for the remaining 60 games, which are now mathematically critical for the playoffs, jump significantly.
They go through the roof.
Because every game is a premium event, the advertising rates the network can charge go through the roof too.
Yes.
So the total valuation of the national broadcast rights easily eclipses the loss of the local gate revenue.
It's the classic transition from selling a high volume of cheap commodities to selling a limited run of luxury assets.
I love that framing. Luxury assets.
And when every game is treated as a luxury asset, the events surrounding the game have to be elevated to match that status as well. Which brings us perfectly to the structural changes the source proposes for the mid-season break.
Oh man, the All-Star break, which, let's be totally honest with each other here, has become completely unwatchable in recent years.
It's pretty grim.
The main game is basically a glorified shoot-around where guys are actively trying to avoid any physical contact so they can catch a private jet to a beach in Cabo by Monday morning.
It's almost insulting to the viewer.
It really is. The source piece proposes completely tearing that current model down to the studs and expanding it into a full, immersive, citywide All-Star Week.
Right. Transforming it from a rushed weekend obligation into a massive, week-long destination event for fans. And the text highlights introducing entirely new formats, specifically calling out a 3-on-3 tournament.
I found the nuance in this section so fascinating because the text explicitly says this 3-on-3 tournament wouldn't just be LeBron, Steph, and KD playing against each other.
No, it wouldn't.
It says it would feature, quote, emerging players and key role contributors. Why dedicate the biggest marketing week of the year to the role players instead of the superstars?
Well, because a healthy, sustainable sports ecosystem requires a robust middle class of talent. The NBA heavily markets its top 15 stars.
Almost exclusively.
Right. But what happens when a team superstar gets injured? If the casual fan only knows the top-tier names, they just tune out entirely.
Oh, that makes sense.
By putting a massive spotlight on emerging players and gritty defenders in a high-stakes, isolation-heavy 3-on-3 format, you diversify the league's portfolio. You give fans a genuine reason to invest emotionally in the seventh man on the roster.
You're creating new leading men out of the supporting cast.
Exactly.
Imagine a defensive specialist, right? A guy who usually just stands in the corner and shoots open threes while the star creates. Suddenly, he's given the keys to a 3-on-3 squad. The spacing is totally different. The intensity is raw, street ball style.
It would be incredibly compelling television.
And the text gets deeply into the aesthetics of this too, mentioning, quote, custom courts and integrated roster displays.
Yeah, we are looking at a radical upgrade in broadcast presentation technology here.
I imagine it looking almost like an esports arena. Instead of just a standard hardwood floor with some painted logos, you have an augmented reality court. Like the floor itself is an LED screen.
Oh, like they've tested slightly before, but fully integrated.
Yes. You have real-time data tracking, sprint speeds, shot arcs, defensive proximity projected right onto the court surface during the replay. You have integrated lighting that reacts dynamically to massive dunks or game-winning shots.
It gamifies the viewing experience.
Completely. You are taking the raw physical athleticism of these secondary players and packaging it in a hyper-modern, deeply immersive fan experience.
And if we connect this back to the broader thesis of the Film Room Remix piece, these aren't just cosmetic gimmicks to distract people.
Right. What's the deeper purpose?
The source is arguing that by reducing the overall regular season volume to 60 games, you actually create the bandwidth both for the players physically and the league's marketing arm logistically to execute these massive intentional spectacles.
Wow. Because right now they just don't have the time or energy to pull that off.
Currently, the All-Star break is just a mandatory, desperate pause for breath in an exhausting marathon. Under a 60-game model, it becomes a true citywide cultural festival.
It's a celebration of the sport rather than an interruption of it. I love that.
Me too.
But eventually, the festival ends, the 60-game sprint concludes, the playoffs happen, and a champion is finally crowned. And this leads us to what might be the most overlooked yet profoundly impactful part of the entire Film Room Remix argument.
What happens in the dark?
Exactly. What happens when the players are actually not playing?
Right. The source identifies the current NBA lifestyle as a, quote, continuous cycle. That specific phrasing is really critical to understand.
The continuous cycle. Break down a year in the life of a modern elite basketball player for us so we understand why that phrase is so important.
Okay, so the season ends in June if you make the finals. You take maybe 3 weeks completely off to let the basic joint inflammation subside.
Barely enough time to unpack your bags.
Basically. By mid-July, you are already back in the gym doing individual skill work and weightlifting.
Right.
August rolls around, and you might have national team obligations, the FIBA World Cup, or the Olympics.
Which are incredibly high intensity.
Super high. Then in September, you are running intense pre-training camp scrimmages with your actual NBA teammates to build chemistry. October, the preseason starts all over again. The body never, ever exits the state of high alert preparation.
It's an industrial assembly line for human tissue. And human tissue requires prolonged downtime to actually regenerate on a cellular level. The text argues that shifting the start of the season from October to Thanksgiving provides a, quote, realistic off-season window.
And a realistic window means actual time for deep physiological healing. Let's look at another hypothetical. Say a player suffers a severe bone bruise in their knee during the playoffs in May.
Ouch. Okay.
In the current system, medical protocols might dictate 8 full weeks of total non-weight-bearing rest.
But training camp is basically in 6 weeks.
Exactly.
Right.
So what happens? They rush the protocol, they get a cortisone injection to mask the pain, they start running on an anti-gravity treadmill at week 4 instead of week 8, and they enter the new season fundamentally compromised.
Which means the fan is getting a compromised product from day 1 of the new season.
Bingo. But if the season doesn't start until Thanksgiving, that player has a massive buffer built in. They can complete the full 8-week rest protocol, undergo a proper, unhurried 4-week ramp-up phase, and still enter training camp at 100% baseline health.
That makes so much sense. And the source also touches on external competition in this window, specifically the global ecosystem of basketball.
Yes, international play.
Because the NBA is arguably the most global major American sports league, right? The players take immense pride in representing their home countries in the Olympics or the World Cup. But the current calendar essentially treats international play like a hostile competitor.
It really does. Playing in the Olympics in August under the current 82-game schedule means you effectively forfeit your entire offseason.
You get zero rest.
Zero. You go from the intense pressure cooker of the NBA Finals straight into an Olympic training camp, fly to Paris or Tokyo, play high-stakes elimination games against the best in the world, and suddenly it's late September.
And you are jumping right back onto the NBA treadmill with zero runway.
It's an impossible bind for these athletes. They either have to let down their country by skipping the tournament, or they have to mortgage their NBA regular season performance by burning themselves out before it even starts.
A realistic offseason, created by a 60-game schedule, harmonizes the NBA with the global basketball calendar.
Beautifully.
A player can win a gold medal in August and still have the entirety of September and October to completely detach from basketball, to rest their minds, let their bodies heal, and ramp up methodically for a Thanksgiving launch.
It completely turns international play from a physical liability into a massive global marketing asset for the NBA.
Right. The players stay visible on the world stage, promoting the game globally, but they don't break their bodies doing it.
Everyone wins.
So let's look at the ultimate compounding result of giving these guys the gift of time.
The source distills it perfectly. When players have the actual time to heal, to decompress psychologically, and to pursue global ambitions without a massive physical penalty, they enter the new NBA season healthier, sharper, and better positioned to perform.
The text states, and I love this line, and when the players are at their best, the game follows.
It is undeniable logic.
It really is. Healthier bodies combined with elevated stakes create a vastly superior entertainment product. Which brings us back to the core thesis of the deep dive today. The move to 60 games is not about doing less for the sake of laziness.
Not at all.
It is fundamentally an aggressive strategy for increasing value. We are talking about dismantling a deeply entrenched, decades-old structure here. We are talking about ripping up the traditional calendar, restructuring multi-billion-dollar broadcast contracts, and completely changing the mathematical pacing of a professional sport.
It's a monumental shift, but the ultimate outcomes of this proposal rest on three distinct pillars.
Let's recap those pillars.
First, more meaningful matchups. Shrinking the margin for error forces every single game to carry playoff-level intensity.
Every night matters.
Second, more consistent player availability. Mitigating the brutal cumulative fatigue means stars are actually on the floor for the games that matter, effectively ending the era of load management.
The fans actually get what they pay for.
Exactly. And third, more intentional moments. Shifting from a sprawling, exhausted marathon to a curated series of high-impact events, from a targeted holiday launch to a totally revamped All-Star Week.
Meaningful matchups, consistent availability, intentional moments. It's a blueprint for an infinitely better product, and it leads to the core mantra from the very end of our source text today. I want to read this directly from the excerpt because it perfectly encapsulates the entire paradigm shift we've been discussing. Quote, "The NBA doesn't necessarily need more basketball. It needs better basketball."
It challenges the fundamental assumption of modern scale. It proves that relentless volume is actually the enemy of true quality.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to turn this directly back to you, the listener.
The real-world application.
Exactly. We've spent this time dissecting the logistics, the physiology, and the financial models of a massive sports league. But the underlying philosophy here scales down to the individual level perfectly.
The tension between quantity and quality is a universal human experience.
It is. If a multi-billion-dollar, globally recognized entity like the NBA can hypothetically sit down, audit their entire system, and admit that doing less might actually produce a far superior result, well, it forces a pretty uncomfortable personal reflection, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Where in your own life are you blindly playing an 82-game season?
Where are you defaulting to volume just because it's the established norm?
Where are you prioritizing endless to-do lists, perpetual motion, and chronic exhaustion simply because that's the way it's always been done? Are you watering down your own output?
Most of us are, honestly.
Are you load managing your own life? Are you giving 60% effort across 80 tasks just to survive the sheer quantity of your commitments when you really should be aiming for a fiercely focused, highly intentional 60-game season?
It requires a lot of discipline to audit your own calendar and aggressively cut the filler episodes from your life.
Cut the filler. Redraw your timeline. Build in the actual realistic time for deep recovery. Harmonize your schedule so that when you do step onto the court, whether that's engaging with your work or your passions or your family, you are at your absolute best. Because just like the game of basketball, your life doesn't necessarily need more tasks, it needs better engagement.
A great thought to leave on.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this gave you a new lens, not just for the next time you turn on a sports broadcast, but the next time you look at your own daily grind. Keep questioning the systems around you, demand value over volume, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.